Okay, I'm going to go through and try to show you how all this thing works. Even though this is a Maverick, the startup should still be the same. First of all, you turn on the machine, and then you start up the computer. Now I've started up the computer and got it to where it comes up to the head, to the regular screen. And then I go through and I open up the Maverick, basically the MACH3, and have the MACH3 come up. It's key that your machine already be hooked up and turned on. First thing that comes on is the reset button, and what you need to do is just go through and hit reset, and it's going to go through a script. If you notice, the script is actually right here that it goes through, and it goes through and asks you if you want to warm up the machine, which I do. So I'll say yes, and actually the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, do you want to reference the machine? And I say yes, and right now it's going through, and it's going through and hitting all the various stops that are on your machine. Mine does the same, even though it's a Maverick, it already does the same thing. It'll move into position, and it'll go through, and it will zero itself out to the 0 point. Then it's going to come back up and have a thing that says, do you want to warm up the machine? And so what you do is you click yes. It'll move into a position where you can change the bit, pretty much any bit that's in it now. I just gotta leave the last bit in, and I'll have it there, and I'll just leave that in there, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And what it does at that point on the Maverick, it moves all the way back to the back of the machine, and it'll start doing a warm-up cycle. Now, the warm-up could take a minute or two before it actually starts warming up. This time it actually started right away, which is kind of unusual because sometimes you'll sit here for upwards of a minute to 2 minutes before it'll actually start going through the warm-up. And as you notice, it's starting to spin through. And what it does is, if you look on your MACH3, you'll see that, right here it's going through various cycles. And see, it went from 8,000 to 12,000, and it'll continue up to 24,000. Progressively moving through there till it warms up. While this thing is warming up, I'm going to go through just kind of the setup here. Over here is where all the code kind of is set up. You notice you got the load code, edit code, close code, rewind. The buttons you're most concerned with is the load code and close code. If you want to go off and change MACH3, you'll hit the edit code. Right here is the cycle start, which we'll go through when we want to run a program. And then you got the feed, hold feed, cycle stop, and reset button. Now, whenever you load code into this thing and it's all loaded up and you want to start a program, you'll hit the cycle start button with using your mouse. If for some reason you realize you made some kind of mistake and you want to stop doing the program, what I always do is go ahead and let it go through the touch-off process before I'll try stopping the machine, and then basically resetting it. I mean, if you want to go through and stop something in mid-cycle, the best thing to do is to click the feed hold button and wait for the machine to come to a stop, even though the spindle will still be going, and then hit the stop cycle button, and then park it and start all over again. If you were to go off and hit the stop cycle button at any time when the machine's running, it will stop, but it seems like it comes to an abrupt stop. Right now the machine is spinning down to where now it's gone off and it says it's referenced, and you see it's at the far end of the table here. It's stopped cycle, and it's gone off and said that the machine has been referenced. So all you have to do is hit here is just click stop, and you're kind of set up now to go ahead and get things started. Right now, if you notice, it's in offset 1. That's your 3-axis offset. If you want to do a turning, if you click turning here, it'll go to offset 6, and that's your turning offset, which would be pretty much the center right here for the thing. Right now I have it set up to where, and on offset 1, I actually have it marked on the table right here is where I have it normally set up at. So I'm going to go back to offset 1, and one of the first things you want to do is you want to go through and move the machine to a place that you're going to go off and reference the Z reference for a program. Let's say we're going off and we're going to run a 3-axis program that's just going to use the bed, which is this bed right here, on 3-axis, and we're going to want to use this as the 0, 0 point. But we want to go off and use the bed as the bottom of the machine. But key here is what I want to do is I want to go through and have a spoil board on the machine here. So basically, when I cut into the when I cut, this will be actually my bed bottom. So this way, if I go to and cut through the material, like I've done with this here piece here, it will go through and basically cut into the spoil board and not cut into my other board. So what I need to do is reference the machine to where the bottom, which is Z, the Z0 that you'll set up in Aspire or one of your other programs, is going to be really pretty much the top of this piece here. And so because what we're going to do is, if we take another piece of material that we're going to use to say cut into it, this is the top of the material. Let's say this is a piece of material I'm cutting through, but I want to cut through all the way to the bottom. This will be the Z0 point because it's at the bed. This would be the Z0 point for the top. So the first thing I want to do now, after I've gone off and set up my machine, is come over here, and I want to move my machine. By that, I'm clicking with the X-axis to where now, and then I go to the Y to where I'm moving this to where it's over this piece of material. And what I want to do at this point is I want to use the Smart Tool setup, which is right here, and it's at the bottom. So I got offset 1, I want Smart Tool setup, and what I want to do is I want to set the Z0 at the top of this material here to be my Z bottom, because as you notice, if I'm using this material to cut through, now my bottom is here, and this is a material, and you know, when it cuts through to if I set it up to cut through to 0, it's just going to cut down to here. So what I want to do now is take my machine, and I've got a bit in it, and I want to go through and hit the Smart Tool, and I want to start it. And notice it's got a double thing here, multiple tools. I'll say yes to both. And what I want to do is make sure that I've got the touchpad under where the machine is here, and I'm touching off the material. Notice how it comes down and it touches twice. And then you go back to the home position with this, and then you click OK, and this thing moves over to the home position, and it'll do the touch off. See how it's coming down? It's going to do the same two things. It's going to touch twice. And now if you notice, I have my Z0 set up right here. If I go to this thing that says go to offset 1, if I click go to offset 1, it's going to go to that position that's set up, that I have set up for offset 1. And I'm kind of really ready to go at this point. Okay, right now I'm going to park the spindle, bring it back up. You see, this goes to a park position. And so right now everything is set up to where, you know, if I go, say, let's go to offset 1 again. If I click to go to offset 1, this time I'm just going to show you what happens on MACH3. You know, I'm going to click this go to offset 1 button. And notice how it zeroes out all the way, and that moves it to that position right here. So everything's good. And then if I hit park spindle, which moves it out of the way and gets it up there, it'll go through and move out to this position. Now the nice thing is I've got my offset 1 all set up. I can actually go through and actually re-reference the machine, which is right here. If you hit reference, it'll go through and do a reference of the machine. It'll go through and re-reference the thing. And it's pretty much just going on the stops that are set up there. And because of the fact that I have offset 1 set in, if I go to offset again, you know, say just let me click here, go to offset 1, it's going to go right back to the offset 1. So we're kind of in good shape here. Now what I want to do is say I want to you know, go off and load a piece of material on my machine. Let me put this in park so that I could do this. And right now I'm just going to load a piece of material on here. Yeah, I don't have anything like real ready here. I'll just put that right there. And you know, I'll use this, you know, what I have to do is move this over to where I clamp it down. You know, if I have this all set up, I want this to be at 0. And I'm not going to go through and run a program here, except I'm just going to show you how to do it. You know, what I want to do now is I want to load the code, which I click load code, and I'll go through, and I'll have gone through and taken a thumb drive here. Well, let me just do this. Let me cancel that. Let's just take a thumb drive. I have a thumb drive here. I'll load it into the machine. And you heard it click. It goes through, and you can see it comes up here. But one of the things I need to do is get that out of the background and say I need to load a program to say this is assigned, this is Dad's workshop. I'll click it and I'll move it over to the desktop. Now I already have Dad's workshop on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and replace it at destination, because there should only be one of those on the program at one time. And then what I want to do is I want to eject the thumb drive from the machine. This is just an extension to make it easier to get in and out of this device. And I'll click here, you know, click on the program itself, which was down here in the bottom. Notice that kind of brings up this window, and I'll click load code. When I click load code, a menu comes up, and I can go through and now select Dad's Workshop, and I'll click that, and I'll click open. And then what I'll do is, notice I've just loaded the code on here. Now, when I want to start the program, all I'll do is click cycle start to start the program. Now I hit cycle start. Now what it does is it comes over and asks me to change the drill bit. Now I'm not going to change the drill bit because you know how to change drill bits and stuff, but say I put the right bit in there, it's going to go through and do the touch off. Now I'm going to show you how to get out of this thing if you've messed up, because right now I really don't want to run this program. I just want to show you. So I'll click the tool change, and even though I realize I might have made a mistake so far, I want to have it go ahead and go through this tool touch off first, because the way the routine works, you know, the machine might act a little peculiar if I'm going to go through and do this, you know, do this setup here. So it's going to go through, and because of the fact I have a dust cover on this thing, and I have this button down here highlighted in green, dust shoe, it's going to go off and bring up this thing saying attach the dust shoe before I start the program, which I'm going to do here. And then what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and click, when it says this, I'll click start, I'll click OK, but I'm immediately going to click feed hold until the thing stops so I can get out of this program. So here, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to click there, I'm going up here, click feed hold, and it actually stopped the program already, which is good. But it moved into position to start doing this cut, but I stopped it before it started up the bit. So I'll click stop, and notice how it goes back up to the machine moved back up to position here. I'll hit park, and that's kind of how you get things started with this machine. So if you notice, you got reference, you got warm-up spindle. You'll probably never, you might never use that because the fact it'll automatically warm itself up unless you want to do this. Constant velocity should be pretty much be on all the time, but then the program will go off and set itself up for constant velocity. If you're working with basically turning stock, you can change this number down here. Say you're dealing with just a 1.5 inch piece, you click that, and a 1.5 inch square piece, you put that in there, and what that does is it changes basically kind of your feeds and speeds for turning and stuff. So right now it's set up for 1.5. I had it at 4.5 before. As you can see, it's easy to change. Let's change it to 3, and that makes it easy to change. When you go to offset, remember the offset button is going to go to all three locations. It's going to go to the X, the Y, and the Z. So unfortunately, Z is variable until you go off and use your smart tool setup to go off and set the Z height. If you want to go off and just move to an X and Y position without going through and without taking it to Z, which could drive it into the table if you don't have it set up right, you can just click down here into this button, and you click on your keyboard. Let me get this on here. See if I can get both of them in here. G0 space X0 space Y0 enter, and the machine will move to the to basically the X and the Y0 location. Okay, when you're working the machine and you're moving it around, you have continuous jog, which whenever you move the thing, it'll go fast in one direction, you know, fast in the X, fast in the Y. You can click over. If you click here, now you're just doing like 1/1000ths. You can change it to 10/1000ths or 100/1000ths of an inch, moving it. So whenever you click that, it's just going to barely move at all when you click on it. And you can, you know, change these positions. You can also change your this location here by going off and having this thing at 10,000 or even continuous jog, and you can, you know, move the A axis, and that will turn this to a different position. But you should be in turnings whenever you're doing that. When you're running it, say your spindle's on, you've got it right here at 3,000. You can actually turn the spindle on and off with the machine right here. I can turn it on, and this just turned it on, and it's at 3,000. And while it's running, say you don't like the sound of the cut and it's not, you know, cutting as fast as you want, you can increase that by just clicking on this, and notice how that's increasing the numbers. You can also increase or decrease your feed rates. You know, you can by your adjusted feed rates. I'm going to take that on back. Now, the key to this is that you may have several tool changes that you've done, and what's going to happen is that when you do the next tool change, it's going to go off and work at the adjusted speed rate, and if you have that one set correctly, you're going to have to pretty much slow it down. Okay, hopefully this will kind of help get you started on what's doing, and maybe you can give me a call, and we can kind of go through this over the phone while you're doing it. But hopefully you find this video helpful, because I know they don't have a video that goes through all this right off the bat.